Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. How are you this morning? You doing great? It's chilly and a more blustery day. Oh, rain coming later in the week, and it is this Wednesday. You doing great? Mug up this morning. Hey, Donna. Good morning to you. You doing all right? Things good. It is. You hear clunks and bangs. We have some young ladies from the Deaconess home here today. They are down there making lasagna with some of our volunteers, having a little time together. That lasagna will go off to care for other families that are in the programs that they offer. So it's a great kind of day here at church, kind of caring for the world and letting them have the opportunity to come in and spend a little time with our folks, but then also do some good and in helping some families that are on the margins. So it's a good day. Good morning. Hey, Karen, good morning to you. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Hope everybody's well. All right, let's get going this morning. All right, it is. Hey, Donna, we will keep you in our prayers. Have some doctor's appointment this afternoon. Could use some prayers. We will offer some prayers for you today and everybody that is a part of this. All right, good morning, everybody. It is the 5th day of November on this Wednesday, and know that you will be prayed for today and that we'll lift you up. Should you happen to hear my words and my voice, know that you have been commended to the one who made you. Today is the 5th of November, and the great one of the great English poems that was written in a couple hundred years after the actual event, but it was to commemorate Guy Fawkes and his attempt with Robert Catesby to blow up Parliament. And so I actually want to read you the poem this morning because, I don't get to read poems that often, and it's kind of fun. Most of us remember this poem from the reality of from the movie Reality. That's funny. A little Freudian slip there. From the movie, the V for Vendetta, which is all about the 5th of November and a bit of a replay or a recasting of the events of that. But in 1605, Guy Fawkes, Robert Catesby, and some other conspirators decided that the Catholic persecution by the Protestant kings, but queens and kings, so Elizabeth the First, and then on to James the First, had been too severe, and that they'd tried many different ways. Even in the time of James, some reports would put, or between Elizabeth and between James, nearly 100 priests were killed in England as a result of their of the exertions of the Protestant movement in England against their Catholic countrymen. Well, so both they had had enough of it and decided that they would blow up Parliament. So they rented a cellar underneath of Parliament, and they would stack they would fill it with gunpowder with the when the opportune time came, when both the king and his family and all of Parliament were formed in Parliament, the fuse would be lit by Guy Fawkes, and the explosion would create an incredible power vacuum, and they would rush in with another Elizabeth, the Princess Elizabeth, who would take the crown as a monarch, but then as a Catholic monarch, and that the attempt to restore England to Catholicism. Um, it wasn't the first time that might had been tried to do that. That was what the whole Spanish Armada was about back in English the First Day. That was what there were many other attempts, but this one is probably the most immortalized. Well, Spanish Armada is pretty immortalized too. But so here's the poem, so the poem, written in 1870, came to commemorate it in America, and so this is the verse. The 5th of November. Remember, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. Why the gunpowder treason should ever be I know of. Let me start that again. This is what you get when you get live. Like, who knows what's going to happen? I make mistakes. All right, the 5th of November. Remember, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Guy Fawkes and his companions did the scheme contrive to blow the king in Parliament all up alive. 70 barrels laid below to prove old England's overthrow. But by God's providence him they catch, with a dark lantern, lighting a match, a stick and a stake, for King James' sake. If you won't give me one, I'll take two, the better for me and the worse for you. A rope to hang the Pope, a pennyworth of cheese to choke him, a pint of beer to wash it down, and a jolly good fire to burn him. Holla boys, make the bells ring. Holla boys, God save the king. Hip, hip, hooray. So you can see that, that verse, 1870 America, was, thoroughly behind the excitement of Guy Fawkes's arrest and summary execution, and the preservation of James and the Parliament that would continue on. The thing about this, which is so interesting, I think, is that the cascading effects of what these things lead on, that we, hundreds of years later, look back at these events and we say, oh gosh, the Catholics and the Protestants at war in England. We could look back, 50 years into the 1970s and look at Catholics and Protestants in England and at war in Northern Ireland, England. And so this, these contentions that have lived over hundreds of years, we would suggest they might be over theological differences, but really they're over power differences. That this notion of who is going to make the rules and the laws of the land, who will have taxation power, who will be able to extort money and raise armies and go to war with people, and the desire for power over, and how that can take even the most holiest of things and corrupt them. And yet out of this, and some of you may even be rooting for old Guy Fawkes, and Guy Fawkes still exists today. Like there'll be this night there will be Guy Fawkes parties where Guy Fawkes was burned in effigy, and that's often the party is. There'll be a little doll and the doll of Guy Fawkes, and it will be burned. That even hundreds and hundreds of years later. But what I find what's always interesting to me about this story, and if you're bored to tears because, oh my God, why do I care about some historical event that happened so long ago, is that happened that in 1604, King James I decided that the English language needed a better Bible, Now, part of it was he wanted a Bible that was kind of um, more conducive to his own political kind of swing, but he also wanted a Bible that was the very best of scholarly works as well. It wasn't all just politics. And he commissioned what we would become to know as the King James Bible, the King James Version, the KJV, as you might hear it called, and that would the KJV would become and is still in many ways today the signature tome, the signature work of Protestantism and the Bible in the English language. Now there are many other translations, and many other translations do many other things, but the poetry, the beauty, the way in which the language alone was affected. There are numerous phrases in the English language that come into being simply as a result of the King James version of the Bible. So that was in 1604. Was commissioned. It wasn't finished. Having gathered the greatest scholars in all of the English-speaking land, having gathered all the best that they could, it wasn't finished until 1611. Had the gunpowder plot taken place, had the gunpowder plot actually been successful, even on a minor level, we would never have that Christendom alone would never have had the King James version of the Bible. Now, some of you might say, yeah, we would have had the Geneva Bible, which would have been much better. But I think that the power and what happened as a result of the King James Bible. There's entire books on the effect that the King James Bible had on not just the English language, but on the English-speaking world and on the globe itself. I think you can make a case, and many scholars have made this case, that the KJV version of the Bible is perhaps the single most important book ever written in the world in terms of the effect that it would go on to have. Not just the Bible itself. The Bible itself has incredible effect as it's gone into the world. That's certainly the case. But that translation alone, in terms of the way that it reached lost people around the world, in terms of the way that it brought light to darkness. Now the Geneva Bible is awesome, and I'm much more of a fan of the Geneva Bible. Don't hear me say that it's the best translation ever. That's not my point. But it is to say we can look at nearly 500 years, 400 plus years of history, and we can look at the power of what that book had taken place. And so we think about these plots, and we live, I think, very much in a world where good old Guy Fawkes would have felt very at home. We live in a world of some radicalism, yeah, of violence being used as both religious and political tools. We live in a world in which where people are and have and continue to go for the mat for their political stripe, and sometimes dressing up that political stripe in the costume of faith. But in all of it, there is this way in which, and I think that the foiling of Guy Fawkes's plot in some ways has this way of giving me great hope. Because even in the dark days of what was going on in England, and oh, by the way, our spiritual ancestors were being brutalized right in the middle of that. They were actually caught between these two great powers. That the separatists, the pilgrims, were both persecuted by the Catholics and by the English Church. So the reason coming to America, coming to the Americas was in many ways the only way out, other than the Netherlands. And in all of this, I think when we see this fact that the foiling of this plot, we see, yes, that God does lead us, and God does care for us, and God does work with us, and give us the freedom to hang ourselves, even should we so desire. But God does not leave us abandoned. God does not leave us without His word and His hope for us. God does not leave us without the opportunity to turn around the way in which the world is suffering, even when it might even when it might burn down. That God is always that even the things that in the most brutal and the most horrible of ways unfold, that the hand of God's providence continues to be with us and guide us and hold us. And that we are not and that even though we feel like we may be abandoned, even though we feel like that the wheels are coming off, even though we feel like that there is chaos and chaos alone, that it's just one guy fox after another that wants to light the fuse on the world, that there is ever and always the hand of providence ready to and simply let us continue to work and to strive and to be his people. And that even these worst of things find their ways to become and to bring forth the best of things. Friends, wherever you find yourself today, whatever wick you seem to be staring at that it seems to be fizzling along towards some big pile of gunpowder, it is my hope that you will ever endure and ever hold on and ever remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot, that I know of no reason that it ever should be forgot. Because in truly ways that we can look back over these 100 years, that the hand of God was in the preservation of that to bring forth the Bible and bring forth God's word to all the English-speaking language. And it was preserved in that moment, and it's being preserved right now in your life, here and now. Peace and grace to you all, my friends, and we'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.